So, any other questions? This was not a question. I think I started saying it.
هناك بعض الاعتراض من العرب أن سيدنا أحمد المسيح الموعود عليه الصلاة والسلام لم يحج، فما سبب ذلك؟ Some Arabs object that the promised Messiah عليه الصلاة والسلام did not perform Hajj. So what was the reason for this?
If the Holy Quran prevents someone from performing Hajj, what would be the verdict of these Mashayikh Arab? Should someone do it by force, or should he or she submit to the will of Allah and abstain from performing Hajj? This is my first answer in the form of a question. If the Holy Quran does not give the right to someone to perform Hajj under certain conditions, then what would be their verdict? What such a person should do? Why did Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam not perform the Hajj on the day of Hudaybiyah? What was the reason? He had seen in a dream from Allah that he was performing Hajj, and he had taken the trouble of bringing hundreds of Muslims along with him. And he returned without performing Hajj, because he knew that the piety is in the submission, not in actual outward acts. This is the state exactly applicable to Masih Maud. When he claimed to be the Messiah, all the Muslims of the world, known world at that time, except a very few who had accepted him, were turned violently against him. The mullahs, we have published literature by the mullahs and confessions that they had traveled far and wide to seek edicts of the mullahs that this man has forfeited his right to live and he must be murdered, and he would not be permitted to enter Kaaba. So what should he have done? Should he have followed the example of Muhammad Rasulullah or someone else? Why should he have followed the mullah's word? Because the Quran says, if the safe passage is safe, then you can perform Hajj, not otherwise. Right? So that is one obvious reason why he did not perform Hajj. But he kept craving for Hajj. He kept craving for going to visit the grave of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. In one of his these poems, what is it called? Hymns to Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah. He says, "Jismi yatiru ilayka min shawqin ala, ya layta kanat quwwatu tayrani." This was his state. Yahibbaka innaka qad dakhalta mahabbatan fi muhjati وَمَدَارِكِ وَجَنَانِ. So with this love for Muhammad Rasulullah and for the place where he was buried, he wanted to go. Who prevented him? You mullahs. And the sin of his, if it was a sin, it will be on your shoulders. And I also remind you one thing. Sometimes the Hajj which is not performed is the Hajj which is performed in the book of God. That Hajj, as I have explained before, of Hazrat Muhammad Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and that Umrah which was to be said before, he did not perform them. But the Wahi from Allah told him, لِيَغْفِرَ لَكَ اللَّهُ مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِكَ وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ وَلِيُتِمَّ نِعْمَتُهُ عَلَيْكَ وَيَهْدِيَكَ صِرَاطًا مُسْتَقِيمًا. So this is the Hajj which he had not performed, but it was accepted by God as no Hajj had ever been accepted before him. مَا تَقَدَّمَ مِنْ ذَنْبِكَ وَمَا تَأَخَّرَ. All is forgiven. And it happened also in the case of one humble servant of Allah later on in the history of Islam. It is reported in the books of the Muslim saints are full of this particular event, which is a glorious thing to read. It is so impressive, so touching to the heart. It is said that once somebody visited Mecca during Hajj, and he had performed Hajj, and he was resting in the open at night, when he saw in a dream that two angels were talking to each other, and one of them said that this is a strange year, that the Hajj of none of the visitors has been accepted by God. They have come in vain, no Hajj is accepted. So the other angel inquired, no one? He said, no, except one. And who was he? He is the one who didn't come for Hajj. It's a fantastic story and so real. So he heard the angels, and perhaps he talked to them and inquired about his address, who that person was. And he was told that he is a poor cobbler in Baghdad, and this is his address. So after the Hajj, he went to see him, and it was there. He knocked at the door, and a poor cobbler answered the call. He said, what's your name? Said, this man. Did you want to go to Hajj and you didn't go? Yes, I didn't go. How do you know? He said, no, tell me your story first. What did you do special to earn such distinctive favor from Allah? He said, I don't know what, but I know one thing. That once, he said, I'm a very poor cobbler. Sometimes days pass and we have nothing to eat, nothing to cook. No, I'm sorry, this is the other way around. I'm awfully sorry. It was the neighbor of this poor cobbler whose Hajj had been accepted. Not the cobbler. The cobbler is the one who mends shoes and things, you know. So now it will set right. Forgive me for this little mistake, but now I rectify myself. It was the neighbor of that poor cobbler who had been blessed by Allah in the way that he had not performed the Hajj and his Hajj was accepted. So he knocked at his door and said, tell me your story, what is it? He said, once I smelt the cooking of meat from a neighbor, and I had collected some money over years of savings for performing Hajj this year. So because my children also liked the smell of cooking meat and we were a poor people, so I knocked at the door of the neighbor and said, could we share some of the food you're cooking? He said, no. I was amazed, astounded. I was so embarrassed. I said, what do you mean? I have come, I'm your neighbor, I have a right to it. He said, I know you're my neighbor, but you can't eat what I can. I said, why? He said, I was hungry for so many days until I saw a dead donkey on the road. And I knew that the meat of that donkey was halal for me because I had reached the ebb of my life. And I took a portion of it, and this is that donkey which I have cooked. So it's halal for me and haram for you. He said, this touched me so deeply and cut my heart. What will be my answer to God that your neighbor was hungry for so many days and never inquired about him? So he said, I brought all my money, deposited with him. I said, do whatever you like with it. This is not my money anymore. And I said, I want to do Hajj. And the Hajj of this one man was accepted by God. And no other Hajj was declared worthy of acceptance that year. So if God can be so kind to one of the Ummah, who desires to perform Hajj, but for his sake, for some reason, he abstains from performing Hajj. What about the Imam Mahdi whom he has appointed Imam himself? If this happens to him, I believe that his Hajj is definitely accepted. The rest are the people who go there and perform this for this or that reason. Allah knows best. Right? Strongly. He would not stop because they did not permit him. Because of what they had done, God did not permit him to perform Hajj. It should be put it like this. Who are the ulama to do the mana? Huh? But they can make the safe passage unsafe. That is what they did. And what God did was, as long as the passage is unsafe, you can't perform Hajj.